Hey, hey everybody. Hello. If you are tuning in live or watching later, we are glad that you are watching as a part of this webinar series. As you're coming in, if you have access to the chat thread, if you can see that portion on your screen, I don't know what device you're watching on, but let us know you're here. Just say hi. Let us know where you're watching from if you'd like to. We try to make these as interactive as possible so that it doesn't feel like I'm just sitting in a room by myself talking to nobody. We have been doing this webinar series for, this is our fifth one, and we have done different topics like health and safety tips, wise social media and online practices in regards to teenagers, mental health practices, parenting. So if you want to go back and watch any of those, we have an archive at thatsgrace.org/webinars. All of them are free. If you feel like any of them would be especially beneficial for your friends or family members, feel free to share those. We're just trying to provide as much really good online content as we can right now with all the quarantines. So like I said, as you're coming in, I know some people are coming in now, some have been in for just a minute or so. Introduce yourself, let us know where you're watching from. Let us know if you've seen any of the webinars before or if this is numero uno for you. Who am I? My name is Stephen. I'm one of the pastors at Grace Church, and I've been a pastor for 12 years. And this one, different than other ones we've done in the past. Usually we are having a conversation with another person. This one I'm actually going to be doing solo, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But this particular subject on love languages is actually one that I'm especially passionate about. It's one that I have taught and talked through with couples and friends for years and years. I have been a pastor for 12 years, and I've had the opportunity to counsel and to encourage countless couples in their engagements and in their marriages, even friends, talking through this particular subject. I've had the opportunity to lead ministries of, anywhere from 10 people when I was in college to several hundred people in a bunch of different contexts. And one of the themes that I've found in every ministry environment is this: we are all insecure. Even that person that you think isn't insecure, that friend that seems almost overconfident or cocky, and I don't want you to throw their names in the thread and let me know who they are. You know who they are. Maybe you know that that's something you struggle with. Even that person is insecure too. In fact, cockiness can almost be a cover-up for insecurity. Insecurity is a big issue, and it's something that has come up so much in ministry to other people and in counseling that a few years ago I decided to write a short book on overcoming insecurity called I Care What You Think. I put it on Amazon, and if you want an even deeper dive on how to develop stronger self-confidence, check it out. I think I get like $1.14 commission on each sale. So if you buy it, I can retire early. Insecurity is a daily issue, right? In all of our lives. Like, I don't know if a day goes by that I'm not in some way thinking about what other people are thinking about me, right? Does that make sense? Maybe I said that in a weird way, but the fact is we all want to feel loved and we all want to feel appreciated. And what we are talking about in this webinar is just that. One of the most important tools I've used in the premarital process, I've used to counsel friends, I've used to help lead others to become better friends, and it's all rooted in how you show love and appreciation for another person. So I hope you guys are excited to get into this. This may be a subject that you know a little bit about. You may know where we're headed. This may be a brand new thing and you saw the subject and thought, I kind of want to hear what that's about. It is the topic of love languages. Everyone is wired differently. You are uniquely different from the person next to you. And as a result, that plays into how you show love and how you feel loved by the people around you. So if you take two different people with different personalities and different values, and they never learn what those differences are and how it affects them, it's hard for them to develop a really meaningful friendship or relationship because the way you both show love and feel love are different as well. And so for this webinar, just for the sake of this webinar, I want you to think of a close friendship or close relationship in your life just for the sake of comparison. And if you're watching with someone, then you guys can do it together. If you're watching it solo, then pick someone you know that has clear personality differences. It can be a spouse, And in fact, if you're married, I'd encourage, like, start there. Or it can be a family member, it can be a close friend, because this really does apply to all of the relationships in our life. And I want you to just take a moment, and I want you to think, what is one difference between you and that other person? In fact, if you have access to the chat thread, go ahead and throw that in. Put it in the chat thread, throw them under the bus publicly. Let's see that you're thinking through the differences. Different, right? You're different, and they are too. And the goal of this that's good that some of these responses are coming through. And I'm even going to read some of them, but it doesn't take long for you to think of the differences between them, right? The goal of this webinar is to identify what your love language is. Okay, these are good. And what theirs is as well. The goal is to help you understand what your love languages are, what's similar, what's different, so that you can develop a more meaningful relationship together. Sound good? Okay, let's get into it. So let me give you background. The concept of love languages was coined by Gary Chapman in 1992. It's hard to believe it's been that long. He wrote a book called The 5 Love Languages. It's still available today, and there's a ton of follow-up books. There's a ton of rip-off books. Gary Chapman, he's the guy. He's the first one to do it. And we were actually going to bring him in. When I say bring him in, I meant virtually bring him in. But this little thing called a global pandemic prevented us from being able to, and his schedule changed up. So it's just me for this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just talk about his book, and I'm going to talk about some of the material in his book. Here are the 5 love languages. And no, food is not one of them, gentlemen, even though we do feel loved when we have some wonderful food. And clothes is not one of them either. And, football is not one of them. There's a lot of different things that we may feel loved and connected, but truly they all fall under these 5 umbrellas. The 5 ways that we express love and that we feel love to one another. The first one is words of affirmation or words of encouragement. The second one is quality time. The third one is receiving gifts. The fourth one is acts of service. And the fifth one is physical touch. So words, time, gifts, acts, and physical touch. And the idea is this, and don't worry, I'm going to go through each one of them. So if you miss those, I'll come back. The idea is this: based on the way that you're wired, some of these are more meaningful for you than others. And so even before I hop into those, does anyone already know what their love language is? If you're watching with someone, like, kind of take a stab at it and say, I think mine's probably this, or throw it in the chat thread. If anybody's similar, if you guys have any similar ones, and then I'm going to break them down. And what I'm going to challenge you guys to do is we're going to walk through these 5, and I want you to think through almost a ranking of what are these for you. I don't think everybody just has one language. I think it's almost like a scale where we all feel loved in different ways through these different expressions. But I think everybody has like a top 1 or 2 that they feel most loved when those things happen. And so I want you to almost think through, like, what are the top and what are the ones that really, that doesn't do anything for you. All right. So let me break them down. And these are the questions to help you to understand that. Which of these cause you to feel the most loved when this happens? And the other part, because this is just as important, is which of these are the ways that you express love the most? Because not only do you feel loved, like if yours is words of affirmation and you feel most loved when people are saying encouraging things to you, that means you also express love the most often by doing that. And so sometimes if you're not quite sure, look at your own actions and look at the way that you most naturally show love to someone. So the first one, words of affirmation, and I'm just going to give a few tidbits on each of these and we'll just walk through them. Words of affirmation means that actions don't always speak louder than words. There's always that old, axiom that actions speak louder than words. But that's not necessarily the case for everybody. Some of us are very verbal people, and there's nothing more powerful than words. So unsolicited compliments mean the world to you. Hearing the words "I love you" are important. Hearing the reasons behind that love sends your spirits like skyward. Insults can leave you shattered and are not easily forgotten. So according to Dr. Chapman, people with this love language need to hear their partner say, "I love you." Need to hear the people around them say, "I appreciate you. I value this friendship." I value, not necessarily in those words, but you're actually taking the time to put it in words instead of just assuming it's known. So even better is including the reasons behind the love. Like the more specific you are, the more meaningful it can be. So, a written note or talking to them directly with sincere words of kindness and affirmation. Other examples include saying things like, thank you, that was nice of you, I appreciate what you did. Like for somebody who has the words of affirmation, putting it into words really is significant. And I just want to stay on this one for just a moment because it's really easy for us to assume, and it's really easy for us to think that because we're married, the other person knows that we love them, or because we've been friends with someone for a long time that we know it, or because I told them I care for them 3 years ago, they know. But because of that thing, insecurity, if we don't often go back to it, then don't you find that fades away, right? Just like if you're married or if you're in any type of like dating relationship, if you're engaged, if you just bank on a date that you had 3 months ago to say, oh, well, we had an awesome date then, that'll carry us through. That's not enough, right? Because insecurity and self-doubt, and all of the different negative feelings we have are constantly combating the positive. So if words of affirmation is one of your top love languages, or a significant other's or a friend's love language, then go out of your way to write notes, or to send a text, to say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you today. I just want to let you know I appreciate your friendship. Take time to verbally appreciate them. Is this anybody, like if there's anybody listening, and you have access to the chat thread, and you know that this is you, just let us know. Say, I'm a words person. That's kind of the language that we use when we talk about words. The different love languages is we'll say like, oh, are you words? Like for me, this is my second highest one. So it really means a lot when someone goes out of their way to verbally affirm me. And I think part of it is personality, but I grew up with a very affirming father, who clearly words of affirmation is one of his, because that's how he's so affirming all the time. And so I think that plays into it. So that's the first one. Second one is quality time. In like the vernacular of quality time says, like, nothing says I love you like full, undivided attention, being fully present, which that's kind of rare to find, right? Like it's becoming more and more rare to be present and to slow down and to be silent. I'm doing it on purpose because we're just not used to that. In fact, a lot of you, even though we're just a few minutes into this webinar, you might have multiple things going on right now. Like you might not be fully engaged in this. And I'm not saying that to convict anybody. I just think that that's human nature. Like we live in such an ADD culture. So quality time doesn't just mean time together. It means undivided attention, quality time together. Being there for this type of person is critical, but really being there, TV off, or maybe it's watching something with them, but it's like you're actually engaged in that with them. All chores, like tasks, are on standby. Make your significant other or your friend feel truly special and loved. Distractions, postponed dates, or the failure to listen, like all of that can be especially hurtful. So this language, says Chapman, like he says in his book, it's all about giving the other person your undivided attention. That if you're doing something together, you're really doing it together. It's not multitasking. And to take time every day to do this. Spending time with your partner, this is what he says in his book, is about being together, paying attention to each other, sharing something meaningful together, listening and communicating. So examples would include like preparing dinner together, or talking while preparing and eating, sharing plans for what the future, creating something together, putting like stuff aside, and just having designated time. That it's not like you're just coexisting, it's you're connecting. This is my top love language. And if it's yours, let us know. But for me, like I highly value quality time together. And when I think of the closest relationships in my life, like the ones I feel closest to are people that I'm able to spend time with, even if that's quality time over the phone because they live in another state. So I don't think it means they have to be in the same room even sometimes. But that's why when I talk with my wife about the most meaningful times that we have had together in our marriage, it's almost always vacations It's times where we step away from our normal patterns and we're just able to be fully engaged together. And when we go on vacation, hopefully you do this too. I don't really check emails. I let the team that I work with know I'm out for this. If you need anything, here's who might be able to help you with it, because I want to have that quality time together. I even think that's why I value stepping away and going on vacation and unplugging so highly, is because quality time is such a high one for you. And even when my wife and I recently, we were talking about like the most like our favorite memories. I think it was our last anniversary in February. We were talking and say, like, what were the top memories that we had this past year? And almost all of them for me really went back to vacations, because there's just a different mode you're in when you're not able to be distracted by house chores or, just being out of the office and out of that mindset's a big thing. So is that any of you? I know for me that, like, we've only done 2 and these are my top 2. So it's all downhill from here. The next one is receiving gifts. And don't mistake this love language for materialism. Some of you right now, like husbands, if you're watching with your wives, you might be nudging your wife like, oh, she's materialistic. That's not what this means. What it means is the receiver of gifts thrives on the love and keyword thoughtfulness of the efforts behind the gift. If you speak this language, the perfect gift or gesture shows that you're known, that you're cared for, that you're prized above whatever was sacrificed to bring the gift to you. So a missed birthday, anniversary, a thoughtless gift, something that, like, it's just thrown together, like that could actually be really hurtful for someone who has this love language, because that's how they are expecting to have love expressed to them. So the person who loves this language thrives on the love, the thoughtfulness, and the effort behind the gift. In short, actions speak louder than words. So remember the axiom that we said? That's not a universal truth. For some people, words speak louder than actions. For some people, time speaks louder than actions. For some people, actions speak louder than words. And here's what Dr. Chapman says about this in his book. The thing that works best is picking the right gift that shows you understand your partner and the effort you made to express love. So think about finding a gift that your partner has been asking for or would enjoy receiving, and plan for a special way of giving it. Make it a surprise. Like, even the presentation of it can be thoughtful. So the act of giving a gift tells your partner you cared enough to think about him or her in advance, to go out of your way to get something to make your partner smile. So is that any of you? Anybody listening? Are you a gifts person? Any of you feel loved that way? Let us know in the thread. Okay, 2 more. Acts of service. Can vacuuming the floors really be an expression of love? Absolutely, especially if that's somebody's top gift. Anything you do to ease the burden of responsibilities weighing on an acts of service person will speak volumes. The words that he or she must want to hear is, hey, let me do that for you. Or, hey, thank you for taking the time to do the laundry or to do yard work. Laziness, broken commitments, making more work for them. Like, it actually, like it speaks volumes to the person who has this love language, because they would interpret that their feelings don't matter. And remember, there is no right or wrong here. It's not fair, if you don't have this love language, to tell somebody who does that, oh, you're making too big of a deal of this. This is all about being sensitive to how somebody's wired. So this language includes anything you do to ease the burden of responsibility, like vacuuming the floors, going grocery shopping, sending thank you notes, stumped at, like, if you're stumped as to what your partner needs, as he says, like Dr. Chapman says, suggest asking where your partner, ask for them to give you ideas for things that they would like for you to do. Because if you don't have acts of service as a top on yours, which, if that's you, let me know. Like, that's probably my lowest one, is acts of service. I never even take acts of service as, I don't correlate that with love at all. And so that's been a discipline for me, because my wife, that's one of her top ones. So like, if that's you, maybe you have to ask somebody, if you're in a friendship or a relationship with somebody, you have to ask them, like, hey, how can I more express love, because I'm missing it it's a disconnect. And that's the whole goal. It's just you're communicating about the differences here. Simple things like making breakfast in bed, walking the dog, that demonstrates that you care about your partner and your life together. It says you want to make your home and your relationship more livable, and you want to ease your partner's burdens. Now, some of you, when you think of your friendships, your relationships, like, you're not working smart, you're working hard. And I think everybody can think of a story of a time you went out of your way to show love or appreciation for somebody that you cared about, and it wasn't received, or you didn't get back, the affirmation that you needed, whatever whatever a receptivity you wanted, you didn't get back. And it may have been because you were actually showing the wrong kind of love to the wrong person. The wrong kind of love to the right person. Or you were showing a different kind of love than you may have shown them their fourth or their fifth love language, as far as the ones that are most meaningful for you. So let me go to the fifth one, and then I just want to give you guys a few little activities to end with here. Physical touch. Now, this language is not all about the bedroom. A person whose primary language is physical touch is not surprisingly very touchy. So you may be able to think of somebody in your life who that's their love language because they're very touchy. And that, for you, if this isn't yours, like, that may make you kind of cringeworthy. And you don't put that in the chat thread. I don't want to call anybody out here. But we know who that might be based on the fact that they're just a little bit more like physically expressive. Hugs, pats on the back, holding hands, thoughtful touches on the arm, shoulder, or face. And, those can be ways to show excitement, concern, care, love. Physical presence and accessibility are crucial, while neglect or abuse can be unforgivable and destructive. Now, let me just say with physical touch, something that I found is in these love languages, sometimes, especially with gifts and with physical touch, people that have these almost feel superficial for saying that this is a love language of theirs. They feel superficial for saying, oh, I feel like, oh, I just want stuff. And I feel weird saying that because it doesn't seem meaningful. Or physical touch, it's like, oh, I just want to be intimate, or I just like, that's not what this means. It means that the way in which you are wired uniquely, that this is something that you connect with, and this is a way that you express yourself. So people who speak this love language thrive on any type of physical touch. Hand holding, hugs, pats on the back, all of those things are really important. Giving hugs, touching their arm. Dr. Chapman says, offer, like, if you know that somebody has this love language, offer to hold their hand while you're talking. Or if you're having an argument or a tense conversation, and you know that the person you're talking with, that physical touch is a meaningful act of love for them, put your hand on their arm. Just give that connection even in the midst of a harder conversation. Is this any of you? Anybody here say physical touch is a top one? Anybody know what theirs are? Like, when you look at it, maybe you haven't already thrown it in the chat thread. There we go. I want to see some interaction between you. You guys some of you have been throwing in stuff even as we're talking that I'm seeing in the chat thread now. But what I want you to do is begin to rank them, because the bottom line is that not everyone expresses love in the same way. So being aware of the different love languages can help you understand your relationships better. So rank them in order, rank the other persons in order as well. Remember I told you to think of somebody that you're walking through this activity with. And that it may be harder to rank in order of all five. You may not know what 3, 4, and 5 are, because at that point, it's really, sometimes you feel like you're kind of splitting hairs, but hopefully you can identify what the top 1 or 2 are for the people that are the closest in your life. And if not, if you Google 5 love languages assessments, there's actually several of them. There's one through the Gary Chapman's website that walks through it, but then there's a bunch of others as well, and a ton of resources that you can read through them and very quickly self-assess, but even help assess if you have a spouse, or if you're dating somebody, or even with your closest friends. I think the more of your closest relationships in which you know their love languages, the more those relationships are going to thrive. And so the friends of mine where that, like I said, quality time's a high one for me. The friends of mine where quality time isn't a high one, it's not hard for me to tell because they don't value the same thing. And so for them, the way that they want, when we hang out, that we could hang out maybe more sporadically, but when we do, if they're words of affirmation, it's more about the conversation than it is the time together. And so me knowing that, I know not to take it personally, right? Like I know that it's not a personal thing if somebody expresses love or appreciation for my friendship in a different way. So rank them in order. Take just a moment. And if you're watching with someone, see if you can rank them in order. And you might have to do this after the actual call. That's fine too. But think through what's 1 through 5 for you. And it does, like I said, if 4 and 5 are splitting hairs, that's fine too. But between words, time, gifts, acts, and touch, what is that list? And then if you are watching with somebody, or if you have your list, and then you also have like the person who I told you to think through as a comparison, if you have like their top 2, what are the differences you're seeing? Because again, with my wife, I know acts of service is one of her highest, and I would say acts of service is probably my number 5. And so through our conversations, we realize there's a lot of times where she will do things to show love towards me. And sometimes it's things around the house, or she gives up an afternoon to run errands for me, and I'm not even thinking in that wavelength. And because I never expressed appreciation towards her, she felt unloved back for trying to express love towards me. So notice the differences there, and then have a conversation. What can you do? What shifts can you make to feel closer together? How can you communicate better on these? Because being aware it's a huge part of this, is just knowing. So take this tool and keep it with you. If you feel disconnected from a loved one or a spouse or a friend, it might be worth having a conversation, asking them between these 5 practices, which is the most meaningful. And you don't have to have some weird, awkward, forced conversation where you take them to coffee and you say, let's talk about the love languages. You don't have to do that. But I think it's simply asking them, hey, when do you feel closest to me? That's the simple question. And the way they answer that question, if they say, I feel closest to you when we don't have any distractions and we're just having a really good conversation with each other, then quality time might be one of those. Or if you say, I feel closest to you when I can tell I'm a high priority because you're going out of your way just to look for opportunities to help me. Well, then acts of service is one. Or somebody says, I feel really close to you when we're just sitting close together and we're watching a movie. Notice how it's not as much about the time, it's about the closeness. That would be physical touch. Notice that, ask that question, because who knows, this could be the thing that helps your relationship grow even closer. And this could be the thing, honestly, that may rescue an estranged relationship in your life. And that's why this is something I'm really passionate about. And that's why this is one of the things that I really zone in on with engaged couples as we're walking through the premarital process, because I want them to be able to identify differences and differences in expectations. And maybe some of the things that you're expecting in a relationship, they're going to be different. Your childhood cast a long shadow on your present. And so the more you can identify the way that you're wired and how it's affected you and your expectations, the more you're going to be able to have meaningful relationships in your life. So I hope this is helpful. I hope that you've enjoyed this and gotten something useful out of it. If you have, throw it in the chat thread. Let me know, what's one of your bigger takeaways from this? Or maybe you're just like, I learned my love language, or I know I'm this, I know I need to be better at this. Maybe that's a good sentence for you to complete. I need to be better at showing my buddy love by doing this for them. Whatever that is, think through that, because I love having these conversations. I have seen so many epiphanies that surface when 2 people talk about this together and start to realize, holy cow, the way I'm viewing things is totally different than you. And it's something we have to keep in front of us, because, again, just going back to the beginning as I wrap up, insecurity is in our lives daily. Everybody's insecure. Everybody thinks about it daily, even in your most vulnerable relationships. That's why marriages can still fall apart after 30 years. It's a morbid thought, and we don't like thinking about it, but it's important that we realize that it's constant, that we never just want to be on cruise control with it. So thank you guys for being a part of this webinar. I really, really like this subject, and there's a ton of resources on this. If you just type in 5 love languages on Amazon, you'll find a bunch. Feel free to share this resource along. This is kind of like the 30-minute summarized version that you can share with somebody that may just help jumpstart the topic for them. Share it along with anybody that might benefit from hearing it. I hope that you do feel loved today, because God absolutely loves you and he wants you to feel loved by the people around you. Thank you guys for being a part of this with us. Have a good one.